Hello, hello. This is Josh with the Synchronized Universe podcast coming at you live. Well, kinda. I guess I am gonna record this, maybe even edit it. Nah, just kidding. Anyway, hope y'all are doing well. Just getting off work, driving home. Uh, this nice blistery fall day, or whatever you want to call it, fall winter, because we apparently skipped fall, go right into winter weather. That's cool though. We needed it. Dear God, because this whole state was on fire. In any case, me and the buddy Ricky did a show the other day on our continuing series, the Anunnaki Chronicles. It's supposed to be called, the title was messed up, but it was supposed to be called Has Mankind Been Manipulated Since the Beginning? Instead, it was called Mankind Influenced from the Beginning. And that's definitely true. So either way you look at it, mankind has definitely been influenced from the beginning, whether you believe, you know, I guess the religious view or I guess the evolution view, you can't really say it's been influenced from the beginning. However, like, the idea behind evolution, I mean, clearly there's so many holes to that story that it's beyond, it's almost to me, it's crazier to me to believe in the theory of evolution as it sits that we have it right now than it is to believe that it was created by a singular deity. And honestly, really, really say it out loud. Really, really think about yourself. Like, we live on a floating rock in the middle of an infinite blackness. He's spinning around a giant ball of fire, and you're over here talking about how there's no such thing as God, and that's wild. Like, just it's just it's super far fetched that there's a God, but again, we live on a floating rock in the middle of nothing, surrounded by floating around this giant ball of flames. But yep, miracles and stuff like that don't exist, right? In any case, but yeah, the title of the podcast this last week that me and him did, again, was incorrect, but it's supposed to be Has Mankind been manipulated since the beginning? And it's a fascinating subject for me. It's something that, again, I've been studying as part of all this stuff that I read about. All the different religious texts, all the different apothecary books that have been taken out of the Bible. That's the stuff that I got really into because just reading the regular Bible, there's so much missing, man. 100% so much missing. And anytime I had questions, like when I was going to church, like it's just be like, oh, you got to take it on faith. And that's not enough for me. I'm a critically thinking person. And you find that, honestly, religious stuff, like they don't want you to be critical thinking because, you just got to accept it. You just got to accept that that is what it is. And that's just not me. Not something I'll ever be. And again, full-heartedly, I 100% believe in God. Again, I just believe in a different way than normal people. Like, I'm going to use Christians as an example. You know what I mean? They believe in the God of the Bible, right? And yes, they are getting this connection. When you go to church and you're all praying in unison, you get the feeling. And there's a reason behind that. That's because, all of you are coming together. Your minds are focused on something higher than yourself, and thus creating that connection between you and the divine. Again, you can have that regardless if you go to a church, whether you get a group of friends together, sit, meditate, pray, you can have that exact same feeling. That's the important thing to note, is it doesn't have to come just from a Christian church. Like, that stuff needs to be, out of your mind. Like, that's it. You don't have to have a church to have God. Your church is inside of you. Your church is in the books that you read. Your church can be in the plants outside, the trees, however you want your church to be. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a building. Like, that's part of the manipulation game, is they think that you have to go to, or they tell you have to go to this specific place. You got to pay your tithes every month, despite there never being anything about that in any book that says you got to pay the church money every month. Like, that's not helping you get into heaven. That's not doing anything except for helping the church and paying the pastor. And some of these, like, mega churches, like I've gone to a couple times, and they're cool and all, but when the preacher and the pastor, whatever you want to call it, is out there driving Mercedes Benzes and whatnot, and has a house with another house behind it on the property, pool and all this stuff, you got to start thinking that's all he does. Like he just is, as the pastor for this church, and he's out here with all this kind of money. Come on, man. Like that's the other thing that I can give another example, like the televangelist dude, Joel Osteen. Do you know there's a picture of this dude driving in his Ferrari, driving in his like, um, Lamborghini, like, and people don't see a problem with that. And that's, to me, that's mind blowing. You cannot be a claim to be, put yourself up on this pedestal and be a man of God and, out in the world to help people, but like, you're out here driving $500,000 cars. How much of that money could be, gone to help other people? If you were that much in the spirit and that much like supposed to be following that path, what are you doing? That is not the proper path. You're not out here to make millions. Like, I mean, I'm sure, yes, the man does some good. And I guess, a lot of people hate, like, who are you to say what he can and he can't do with his money? But no, look at the path Jesus taught. Jesus was not a man of wealth. He's not out here collecting millions from all these people. He's trying to show them the way. You have to understand the difference between somebody trying to teach you and somebody trying to profit off of you. People like that are trying to profit off of you. Like, I can't stand to watch that guy. To me, like, honestly, I don't think that dude is, I don't think he's a good person. And based off, what little bits I know, honestly, I think he's probably a psychopath or a sociopath just because, like, they tend to be very, very charismatic individuals and get you to, believe them when in reality they have nothing good inside of them like that. And, I could be wrong, but, I've read enough and watched enough of the dude's videos, I don't think that he's a good person. He's a good example. I think there's plenty of other people that you could use it as an example for, how to live in, the God's ways, if you will. Um, and then again, I also disagree with trying to live, you know, in that way at all. Like, you don't have to live by a certain set of rules. You know what I mean? Like, you're free in this world to be whatever you want to be. Like, you're not tied down. You don't have to go to church every Sunday, despite anybody saying you do. And if that gives you the strength, by all means, go to church every Sunday, do your thing. I'm just saying that there is more to the world, right? And I know it started off on a tangent about having to pay the church, but I think that's honestly a big thing. You got to realize that church is also an industry. Just as much as anything else, they're out here getting money. They're 100%. Yes, they do a lot of good, and that is very true. But like part of the other things that always kind of bothered me is like you have so many different types of Christian churches, like so many different types of denominations, and you really look into it, and what it is all just a different way to interpret the same book. So you got all these denominations that say they're the correct way, and it's all really just a different interpretation of the books. And people don't see a problem with that. Like, they don't see it. Like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the world, honestly, especially like politicians are a good example of this, they're just telling you what you want to hear. Like, they're getting, by all means, if you need to lean on that, if you need to lean on a church or anything like that to give you strength to get through the day, that's freaking awesome, okay? Like, but condemning somebody else because they don't want to go to this church and saying that they're going to go to hell, etc., it's wild, man. Like, that is not for you to say. Like, if someone doesn't go to church, even if somebody worships the devil, it doesn't matter. By all means, say a prayer for them. Like, hey, maybe they'll find their way. But it really doesn't matter what somebody believes, and we got to stop trying to, be the police and be like, oh, they need to believe this, and I need to accept, they need to accept Jesus, or they're going to go to hell. And when in reality, we have no honest to God proof of all that. You don't know for sure that the only way to get into heaven is to accept Jesus, other than what you've been told your whole life. No one knows that, except for somebody who died. And even then, like, it's not like you can come back and tell somebody. I don't know, that's one of the things that has always kind of bothered me about it. Like the idea of accepting Jesus, that he died for our sins and stuff like that. It's the whole idea is. I know this is a controversial subject, and I'm tiptoeing around it here, but like I think that Jesus was a good model for the idea of how to beat the reincarnation cycle. And if you follow the original teachings of Jesus and read the apothecary books, like you'll know that Jesus 100% taught reincarnation. Like reincarnation was taught in that time because that's what everybody believed. Like the idea that we're here for this short lifetime and all we have to do is accept Jesus and we're automatically guaranteed a spot in heaven and we'll get this crazy mansion when we get up there. And yeah, that's what people think. And that's cool. If it gives you the strength, by all means, but that's one of the things that, again, don't add up because a lot of people will use that and they'll be like, oh, yeah, as long as I accept Jesus, I can do whatever I want. And that was never the message. That was never what he was trying to teach. Like, simplistic stuff. Love your enemy as you would love yourself. Treat others as you would treat yourself. And the reason is because as hard as this is to believe, Jesus understood what we truly are and that we all are God experiencing itself. So to hurt someone else is to hurt yourself. To hate someone is to hate yourself. To judge someone is to judge yourself. That's what that means. Like, it's really not all that complicated when you get boiled down to it. But it's been distorted over time. Like, the only way you're going to get into heaven is to accept Jesus. And so the idea there is, again, I go back to the story I talked to my mom a long time ago, the Buddhist monk. Because he didn't accept Jesus, this man is not going to go to heaven. And to me, that doesn't make any sense because they literally quite literally devote their entire lives to spirituality. And this person's going to go to hell just because they didn't accept Jesus? Come on, man. Get out of your mind. And it is what it is. I have no problem. I've never had any problem with people believing what they want, going to church, doing what you want to do, believing what you want to believe. But when you make all or nothing statements and say, this person's going to go to hell, this person's going to go to hell, if you don't accept Jesus, repent. It's what turns people away from that. It's what turns people away from religion as a whole. Is the lack of acceptance. You're part of this little club and nobody else gets to be in that club but you. Unless they submit, literally. That is what you're being asked of in these texts. You're asking to submit, being asked to submit to the Creator. Bow down. It's the Bible, when you read it, it's completely full of that stuff. Bow down. And honestly, that's not something for me, man. And by all means, if I'm going to end up in hell for all that, that's fine. It is what it is. Apparently, all the cool people are going to be in hell. So, it is what it is. In any case, yeah, that's part of the game. The reason why I'm talking about religion so heavily is because I think that's, in all honesty, if, the title of my episode, has mankind been manipulated since the beginning, religion is one of the biggest manipulators, 100%. Because the Bible, and again, I'm going to keep coming back to that one because there's so many things about it that, you could talk about. So many books that were taken out of the Bible that make it make a whole lot more sense. The Book of Enoch is a good example. You read the Book of Enoch, hey, things start to make even a little bit more sense. You read the, I read the Talmud of Emmanuel the other day, or Emmanuel, whatever you want to call it. And that's a pretty fascinating book. Apparently, it's supposed to be the original book of Matthew. I don't know about all that, but it was a fascinating read. And the more I read these other books, the more I'm like, okay, seems like somebody is trying to control the narrative and has since the beginning of the time. Because, you think of how many wars have been fought in the name of religion. I actually had the figure in my episode the other day. I'm going to give you an example. So the Crusades alone, everybody knows about the Crusades. It's something everybody learned. The number of people that died during the Crusades is estimated to be between 1 million and 10 million. So there's a scholar guy that he quotes, he says the number he's come up with is 3 million people. 3 million people died in the Crusades, and the Crusades was about religion. They were like convert or die, like being literally murdered because people weren't submitting to religion, and people don't see a problem with that. Like the original, yes, our country is founded on the freedom of religion and all that kind of stuff, but at the same time, we were, executing pagans and executing witches, and our people we considered witches, pagans, quote unquote. And so, yeah, we're freedom, quote unquote, of religion. However, we're mainly Christian here. And it's reflected in a lot of policies and a lot of government. And people are like, we need religion back in schools and back in government. I disagree. And history will show you that religion has absolutely no place in the government. And it's 100% being used against us. Like, there's people that literally hate other religions so much that they would be okay if they all got wiped out. As long as somebody said it was in the name of God, people would be okay with it. I mean, that's honestly what they're reading in their Bible, and they're completely okay with that. All these people completely wiped out. So it keeps this fear in your mind that, hey, if I don't believe, I'm going to get killed, or I'm going to go to hell. I'm going to go burn for eternity. And that's the game. The fear has stayed in man's mind for so long, and it's so well calculated out by whoever it is that put this in place. I'm not going to say God because I disagree. I think that the God of the Bible is not the God that you think. I think that, when you read it, it reeks of human. This reeks of human stuff. Somebody who wanted to control other people. Like, when I read the Old Testament stuff, I'm not hearing anything about a loving God. What I'm hearing about is a control freak who, wants humanity to do a little bit, but he doesn't want them to, go past certain points. Like, none of that makes any sense. But again, if you go back to the Sumerian versions of all this, it starts to make a whole lot more sense. Like, we're dealing with an advanced, an advanced version of us, essentially, who created a slave race that they could no longer, they were starting to lose control over. So what they would do, they'd wipe out tons of people at a time, make sure that they kept them in check. Hey, be scared of us. And that stuff, that fear has stayed since the beginning, since way back when, since mankind was allowed to be wiped out from the flood. And yes, I firmly believe in the flood. I firmly believe that it was a natural disaster that was allowed to happen. I don't think God did it as a whole. But that is what it is. That's a conversation for another day. Also, we do a whole podcast on the flood too. But yeah, man. So again, why I'm hammering on this is the idea that, has mankind been manipulated since the beginning? And, one of the many ways that we've been manipulated is religion. Now, today, I think politics, music is being used as a manipulation tool. Politics is another major one, like people fighting against each other over nonsense, just absolute nonsense. I'm tired of hearing about it. Been tired of hearing about it for years. Like, I don't care I honestly could not care less if you are a Democrat or a Republican. I think you both sound like idiots. That's what I think. Anybody who's out here crying about the Democrats doing this, they're crying about the Republicans doing that, none of that shit matters. You understand you're being pitted against each other because, as Lincoln said, a house divided cannot stand. That is the truth. The people that know are running the game, or people that are controlling the game, understand that. If we come together, the game is over. That's why we are kept divided with hot button issues. And these issues are presented to us in a way that invokes emotions. Anything that you're watching on the news that is invoking emotions is designed to do that. I'm going to say that again. Anything that you're watching on the news that is invoking emotions, invoking a reaction out of you, it's 100% designed that way on purpose. So it gets you fired up. It gets you arguing with people. And then you got the online comment message boards and stuff like that. And you're reading through the comments, which is a form of compulsion addiction, by the way. If you're sitting there looking through comments, looking for reasons to be offended, it's a compulsion addiction. And then you find yourself arguing with people and it doesn't make any sense. And some of the people that you're arguing with are more than likely just bots. What are bots? They are AI units that are specifically designed, to write comments, generate reactions, generate, people come into the comment section and argue with each other. 100% has been proven. Look into this. There is 100% bots that exist, and they stir the pot. A lot of times you'll get these off-the-wall comments, and you'll have 9,000 responses to this comment. And how do you even know that's a real person? You don't. Really don't. They can have a legitimate-looking Facebook page, but in reality, you're arguing with the bot. So remember to take deep breaths when you're reading through comments, which you shouldn't be doing anyway. Stop reading through comments looking for reasons to get offended. Take some deep breaths. You're not going to change anything by talking to someone on Facebook. 100%. I have never seen somebody be like, oh yeah, you're right. You know what? You're right, I'm wrong. Like in these message boards, especially political stuff, you are never going to change anybody's mind. Never. Like, it's stupid. And it's 100% polarized that way on purpose. Like, we've gone so far to the left and so far to the right that, like, you'd be okay with, honestly, if the person on the left needed air, the person on the right would be okay with, freaking letting them suffocate. Like, that's how much the hatred has gotten, and it's ridiculous. Like, you do not see that you're being sold to the highest bidder. Like, 100%. This entire system. So, like, I'm going to talk about the whole woke thing for a second. The woke thing's now been termed as a weapon. Now, I need you to understand something about it. Like, the whole woke thing, they got it partially right. Like, there's a lot of problems going on in our country, but this is not left or right. We are all being manipulated equally, 100%. So, woke is realizing that part of the system is flawed. Being awake, as I call it, is realizing the entire system is set up against us. And, we're having these labels put against us for just ignorant reasons. Like, there is 100% a lot of issues in the United States. And police brutality is a huge freaking issue. It has been an issue. It is not just a black thing. It's not just a white thing. It's not just a Hispanic thing. It's not just an Asian thing. 100% police brutality as a whole is a thing. Statistically, again, we can look into this. You are right. There's tons and tons of examples of minorities being treated poorly. And that's freaking terrible, and it has been terrible for a long time. There's also examples of white people, being killed by police. The numbers are actually higher for white people. And yes, the defense to this is always that the population or the percentage of white people is higher, right? So that, yes, in theory, that's the usual defense, but it doesn't change the fact, that a lot of white folks are still killed by cops as well. Police brutality as a whole. See what happens when you do that? When you take an issue like police brutality and talk about that, just police brutality as a whole. That's something you can solve. That's something you can prove. Like, yes, you can prove that it's, there's a lot of police brutality on black folks, a lot of police brutality on, you can divide it all you want. But we need to tackle the issues wholly. And that is the issue of police brutality as a whole. Like, that's the issue we have. But we're kept so wrapped up and wound up against each other that we cannot solve any issues because we're here fighting each other instead of fighting the system. That's something to remember. Like, these are the things. These are the manipulations that we're doing. Like, look at who's fighting with each other over nonsense. Like, there's an artist that mentions this in the song, and is something, I find it fact, it's true. So we got black folks who are never ever actual slaves arguing with white folks who are never ever actual Nazis. And what he's saying is like, we are arguing like, when you read these online message boards and stuff, like we're arguing like it's, white folks that are keeping the black folks down, and that all white folks or all Republicans are Nazis and stuff like that. And that's nonsense. Like that can't actually be true. Like the idea of blanket statements is stupid. And that's how we keep getting ourselves in trouble, as we're making these blanket statements. Like, all cops are racist. Like, that can't be the case, because what about the black cops? What about the Asian cops? They can't all be racist. You know what I mean? Like, or all white people are racist, and that's stupid. All Republicans are racist. That's stupid. Like, it cannot be the case. Like, I've met racist Democrats. Like, I spent times in small towns, and so I 100% know racism exists. And that's it's a fact. However, saying that everybody is racist is stupid. It's human ignorance at best, because you cannot make a blanket statement about an entire society. It cannot be. We want so badly to make blanket statements, but it's not true. That's like, I was watching this lady talk about like how they're scared to get pulled over because, I don't want to get killed by the cops. And like, it's sad that you feel that way. And honestly, I used to get in trouble a lot. I used to consistently get pulled over. I've been pulled over more than anybody I know. I've been arrested more times. And, I used to mess up a lot. And at no point when I've gotten pulled over have I ever just wanted to either take off, I'm going to make sure I take off driving, or I'm going to get out of my car and run, or am I going to fight a cop? None of those things have ever crossed my mind, because the man or woman has a damn gun. And if I'm going to fight a cop, more than likely, I'm going to end up getting shot. And these are the things we need to realize. If a cop is being racist, you're not going to be able to fight against this person if you're dead. So, to remedy, I've watched this lawyer podcast that talked about it. Videotape your interaction. You'll have that as evidence. If they mistreat you or act in a racist way, you have it all on video. But again, you're not going to be able to do that if you are dead. So, like, all these rap songs and stuff like that, the shit that's promoted, fighting cops or killing cops, that's stupid, dude. Like, you can't fight against the system while you're in the system. You're not going to be able to do that. You have to fight it while you're outside the system. In the community, you could get a crap ton of people together. Put money together. Get lawyers. Help out your people that are going to jail. Like, there's so much things communities can do, to remedy these issues like police brutality. 100%. There's so many things that can be done. But they can't be done if we all can't get along. And that's the idea behind all of it. It's the divide and conquer agenda. That is what I want people to realize. That's what the questions I want you to be thinking about. Who is benefiting from all this? People keeping us divided. Who? Like the people running the show. Not the politicians. The people really, really running the show. The big business owners. Like, as George Carlin said, we have owners. And that is important to realize. 100% we have owners. And they don't want a critically thinking population. They want people at each other's throats so they can profit on them. They want people just smart enough to run the machines. This is, again, George Carlin. They want people just smart enough to run the machine and pay their taxes, but they don't want them, thinking. They don't want critical thinkers. Because as the internet has evolved, what are we getting? More people who are understanding we are being manipulated. So, before you talk all the crap to your conspiracy theory friends, why not actually look into some of these and figure out how many conspiracy quote-unquote theories have been proven true? Like, again, the MK Ultra program is a really, really famous example of this. If you don't know what that is, it's when the CIA was injecting people full of tons of LSD to try to like make them superhuman, essentially. And they were doing this in secret, denied it for a long time. The documents get declassified, and bam, it really happened. So if they were lying about something like that, what else are they lying about? Like, I can't believe there's still people in La La Land that think that the government is 100% on their side and telling them the truth 100, all the time. Like, they think their politicians are not doing them any wrong. Like, the people who worship Biden or the people who worship Trump, he would never lie to us. You're absolutely ignorant. Like, that is what they count on. They want you to worship them as gods and not question it. Like, most of these people are lawyers. They're very, very careful about what they say, just like the whole, big pharma stuff I've been reading lately. I'm not going to go into that one because Spotify will get me, it'll take me out probably. But I'm sure you know where I was going with that. But just know, everything is not always as it seems. And companies are very careful the way they word stuff so that they cannot be sued. Oftentimes, things are worded, again, very, very carefully. Politicians, they say things very carefully. So they're like, oh, yeah, what I meant to say, what I was saying is this. They do it in a way that they can defend themselves later. And it's crazy. I see this crap all the time, and I'm like, man, I don't know how people don't see this. And that's part of another reason I wanted to keep, talk about these podcasts and do this over, because maybe I can see something you can't. And honestly, I used to think, I used to be not a critically thinking person. I used to be, a devout Christian and, trusted the government, was oh man, somebody almost got in a car accident right in front of me. Anyway, I was a supporter of war. We need to go bomb everybody. And then slowly but surely, like, I'm not actually sure what happened, but I call it becoming conscious. And now I view war as ignorance. It's absolute ignorance. Like, we are being pitted against each other by our leaders and used as cannon fodder. Like, that's what I view war as. It's stupid. It's like the idea of, people are all scared of nuclear war. Nuclear bombs should not exist. The fact that our countries are talking about, using nuclear weapons on each other, this should be the decision of us, the people. All over the world, it should be the decision of the people whether or not we're okay with using nuclear weapons. Because I'm not. Because once we start using nuclear weapons, we're going to destroy the planet. And you think the leaders are going to be destroyed? Absolutely not. They're going to go underground like they've been preparing for forever. And if you don't believe they have underground bunkers, you are mind-blowingly ignorant. Like, they were building, these bunkers during World War II, during the Cold War. So if you imagine the bunkers they were building then, they're crazy now, guaranteed. So this kind of stuff only affects us. And the leaders talk about it like it's willy-nilly. We're just dropping this, the N-bomb. We're going to drop the, the nuke bomb. Like, the hell do you mean? Because the only people that are going to die is all of us. The people that are actually paying for all this crap. And it's maddening. I cannot believe, that the world is not up in arms over this crap, dude. Like, it's crazy to me. Like, oh, man. I'm glad I decided to jump on here and talk about all this stuff. But, like, talking about it out loud makes me laugh because most people, again, they don't really think about this kind of stuff. Like, they really don't. They're like, oh, I'm just going to go to work, pay my taxes, hopefully survive. And hopefully, these government officials make all the decisions for me. And then, hopefully I can go to church just enough to get into heaven. And that's what they want. That's a simple life. That's fine. You know what I mean? But the idea is to get everybody I can to start thinking. Like, that's it. And even then, like I always say, you don't even have to take my word for anything. By all means, go do the research yourself. Watch videos. Read books. The key is expanding your mind. And that's part of the reason why I think so much differently now is because how many books I've read since I, became passionate about ancient civilizations and stuff like that. Like, my mind is expanded, so I understand the world differently. When you keep yourself locked into a singular source text, again, the Bible as an example here, you do not expand your mind. Your mind is going to stay exactly where it is because you're not taking in new information. You're rereading the same thing over and over again, maybe, coming up with a different interpretation. Maybe somebody told you to read it a different way, but you're keeping yourself in a box and your mind is not going to expand. No, it's like the idea of reading fantasy novels and stuff like that are excellent. That's a good idea. That's a good escape. But that could be the equivalent of just watching movies all day. I mean, yes, you're being literary, you're reading, you're using your mind a bit more, but it's still not something that's advancing your consciousness. It's not learning anything. Like, that's why I read a lot of stuff again on ancient civilizations, read different books on religions, and expanding my mind because I realize that there's way more going on than meets the eye in a lot of the world's religions, a lot of the world itself. Like, I realized that I knew very little about the world. Like, I had such naive views on a lot of the world, and I started researching. I'm like, man, like, it's ignorance. So at this point in the world, ignorance is a choice because the information is so freely available out there. Like, you can learn anything you want to learn. So again, ignorance is a choice. But anyway, I'm about out of time. I appreciate anybody who's taken the time to listen to this. Again, I'm doing the podcast every week with Ricky LaFountain. I think this week we're actually going to do a live video, which will be interesting because I've not done that before. But we're going to try to expand it onto YouTube and do a little bit of that. Maybe I'll actually stream on here at the same time if I can figure all that out. Who knows? But in any case, I appreciate anybody who's listening. And from the bottom of my heart, each one of you are special to me. And my only goal here, again, is to get people thinking. If what I'm saying about religion offends you, I implore you to really, really think deep down about why you get so defensive over it. Really start to think, really, really think. That's all I want anybody to do is think. But anyway, this is Josh with the Synchronized Universe podcast. Y'all have a wonderful Friday afternoon. Have a good day.